Gotta get back on board that train. That podcasting train. That train of trains that takes me to podcast land. Hello everybody, one and all. Hello everybody listening. Listen to me right now. You listening? Okay, good. This is podcast Salmonella episode 11, I believe. It's been a while since I've done a podcast, and to be honest with you, this is the second attempt at podcasting, just because, I don't know, I feel nervous. I haven't done this in a while, so I just felt like the first attempt at it, I got about 5 minutes in, and I realized that, A, I had to go to the bathroom, but B, I also felt like I wasn't really with the program. I didn't feel like things were flowing very smoothly. So, I started over. And I think I'll start over from a different perspective. I started talking about movies that I've seen at the theaters recently. But I think that may be a bad place to start. I may start from somewhere else. And I think the place that I need to start is, since I work for the digital bits, I write for them, and I write DVD and Blu-ray reviews, I thought I'd talk about some of the things that I've reviewed lately, and things that I've seen that maybe other people have reviewed or something like that. So I'll look through my list here because I have to keep a list. This is the only way I can keep track of all of this. I saw Roger Corman's Queen of Blood recently, which I was shocked that I hadn't heard of this movie for some reason. Not because I'm a Roger Corman devotee or anything like that, which I sort of am, but not really. It's just the kind of movie that I feel like I should have seen already. And according to people that I've talked to about it, it's not really an obscurity. It's just one of those movies that doesn't show up on cable or anything all that much. Which is where I would probably have seen it if I wanted to see it. It was actually a pretty good movie. It's obviously a little schlocky, but it's a very colorful science fiction horror movie. And it's obvious that movies that came later that are very much like it are like, Alien, and later on Galaxy of Terror, maybe Roger Corman's other sci-fi horror movie. But it was actually a beautiful looking movie. The story and stuff wasn't that great. Space vampire woman that they find on a deserted planet, and she starts sucking the blood out of everybody on the ship one by one, and she's laying her eggs everywhere. So the story is nothing mind blowing, but the look of it was pretty good. And it's interesting that Roger Corman also used special effects from a couple of Russian movies that he brought the rights to go around this new movie that he'd shot. So you're watching the Blu-ray and you're seeing the drop in quality all of the time between the old footage, at least the third or fourth generation footage, the Russian footage, versus the second generation Queen of Blood footage. So it's still a beautiful movie, though. I give it a lot of credit. It was actually very entertaining. I just bought Masters of the Universe on Blu-ray for the first time recently. I don't know why it's taken me so long to get it on Blu-ray. I think the reason I waited so long is because I really wanted, and I still do, a really nice extras-filled Blu-ray release. And being that Warner Brothers owns the title, it's not likely. So I just went ahead and bought it. It does have a nice well, not a nice, but it has an audio commentary from the director, Gary Goddard, as well as the theatrical trailer. But it's not enough. And especially the trailer, not the trailer, but the audio commentary is really, it's one of those really bad commentaries from the early days, and people didn't know how to do audio commentaries, and they would just go, oh, this scene is cool. Oh, this scene reminds me of this scene, you know. It's one of those commentaries where he's mostly silent a lot of the time, but he'll occasionally say, oh, this scene reminds me of something. It's not a very good commentary. It's very rarely is it informative. Listening to it, I already knew most of the information that he told in the commentary. He did drop a little tidbits here and there, but I mainly knew it all already. Maybe that's just because I have an unapologetic love of the movie, and I know it's not the world's most warmed up to kind of movie. I don't care. It may be partly nostalgia because I was a He-Man fan when I was a kid. But it wasn't exactly the type of He-Man movie that everybody wanted or expected, but it got the job done. And Skeletor is great. Frank Langella is amazing as Skeletor, and it's just I really like that movie, and I would like a better Blu-ray DVD of it with some better extras and stuff, because I think it deserves it. I think for a lot of movies that get treatment nowadays, especially from Arrow Video, these obscure titles that you've never heard of, and if anybody's heard of them, it's really hardcore genre fans that have heard of them, like people that have been collecting them for years, and they're probably in their 50s, and they saw it when it first hit the drive-in or something like that. Masters of the Universe is not like that. Masters of the Universe had a fairly big opening. It didn't make tons of money, but it's a fairly well-known movie, so it's preposterous. And not to mention that it's based on a franchise. It's preposterous that it doesn't have a proper release on home video with extras and everything. But anyways, pretty good transfer though, I thought. I also rewatched Captain America: The Winter Soldier in preparation to seeing Civil War, which I'll get into later. I love that movie. I think it's a terrific movie. I'm talking about Winter Soldier. I'll get into Civil War later. Not that I hated it. I don't like it as much as Winter Soldier. I think Winter Soldier is one of the most perfect movies that Marvel has made so far. Well, maybe not perfect, but as far as entertainment value and execution and the way it's cut together, it is a movie. And it's a well thought out movie, and it's a well executed movie, and it's just really good. Besides it being a Marvel movie, it was just really good. A couple of movies I saw that I hadn't seen before. I finally saw Larry Cohen's It's Alive, which was it's a Larry Cohen movie. What can you say? Larry Cohen movies have this quality of being kind of crappy, but also kind of brilliant at the same time. Like, the effects aren't always great, the cutting isn't always great, but there's something about it to where you buy into it anyways. It has a weird effect, where the performances are not always the greatest, and sometimes they are in spite of themselves, but I don't know. It's one of those strange things that, it manages to pull off something, in spite of itself. I also saw John Wick for the first time, and this is going to relate to something that I'll talk about later also. John Wick, I don't know. It was a good movie, but the hype surrounding it, that it was the best action movie in years, no, I didn't see that at all. Because to me, great action movies spring from character motivation. And obviously Keanu Reeves' character obviously had tons of motivation to go off what he did, but it was like all of his motivation happens within the first 10 minutes of the movie, 10-15 minutes. And then the rest of the movie, there's no character development, and it's just almost constant action. And I got a little bored with it after a while, because it was like, oh, okay, Okay, all right. But that being said, it was all very well executed and everything. It just felt lopsided, I guess. Uh, I saw Arrow videos, the Zero Boys. I didn't, I didn't care all that much for that one. It was okay, but I didn't care too much for it. Went to see. Well, I guess I'll save that for the theatrical stuff. Let me switch pages here. Let's see. Oh, I rewatched Tremors and Tremors 2. Wow, Tremors is a good movie, and wow, Tremors 2 is not as good as I remember it being. I remember Tremors is always a great movie. Like at any time, it's just one of those movies you can put on and it's instantly enjoyable at any point. But Tremors 2 is burdened. I don't know if it's burdened by anything. It doesn't feel it's not as strong a movie, obviously. And the characters aren't as strong, and the ideas feel lackluster. I don't know. It's just not, it's not a very, it's a very watchable movie and has some really cool stuff in it, some decent sequences and stuff. And I really like Fred Ward. So is it Fred Ward or is it Fred Willard? Shit, I don't know. I don't remember. But anyways, I like it. But Tremors, the original Tremors, is really great. Catacombs, which I'd never seen before. It was on a Scream Factory Blu-ray double feature with, what was the other movie? Cellar Dweller. And I think I actually watched Cellar Dweller also. Now I've forgotten that I've watched it. Cellar Dweller was too short and a little disappointing. Especially I thought the lead actress was kind of terrible. Catacombs was an interesting movie, and it also had some really nice creepy sequences in it, and buttloads of atmosphere. So I give it a lot of credit for that. Overall, though, I don't think it's that strong a movie. I think it's got a lot of interesting stuff in it, but it felt its length a lot of times. I also I actually didn't rewatch. I saw this for the first time. The More Brains, A Return to the Living Dead documentary, which I know is going to be on the Return of the Living Dead Blu-ray that Scream Factory is putting out next month. I think it's next month. And it's a great documentary. I think it's from the same people. It's not all the same people, but some of the same people that did the Never Sleep Again documentary. It was pretty. That documentary is solid gold, and so is the other one that they did, the Crystal Lake Chronicles of Friday the 13th. That was really great. I haven't seen this one they did on Scream though, but this More Brains Return of the Living Dead was really excellent, and it's loaded with extras and everything, so it's really worth picking up. The DVD of that, I believe all of the extras on it, most of the extras are not going to be included on the Return of the Living Dead Blu-ray release, just the doc itself, and maybe like one other thing. So if you're a Return of the Living Dead fan, you definitely want to pick up the DVD and that Blu-ray when it comes out, because that Blu-ray is going to just be almost the end-all be-all of Return of the Living Dead home video releases. It's massive. It's even got the work print version of the movie, 3 or 4 different audio commentaries, tons of featurettes and documentaries, and all kinds of stuff. So I really look forward to that one. Reviewing that one, I'm sure. Venom. Not the 2005 Venom. I think it came out in 2005. This one came out in around 80, 81, somewhere in thereabouts. Venom, I didn't like all that much as a movie. I found it more fascinating than anything. And it's about this sort of upper middle class family that obviously have some money, and their maid and their chauffeur and um, an international terrorist that the maid and the chauffeur are close with are going to kidnap the young boy in this family for ransom, and they end up not being able to get out of the house, and also to add to all of this, the black mamba is accidentally let loose within the house, so they also have to deal with that, and it's killing people left and right. And it sounds like the premise for a really terrific movie, and I felt it was just an okay movie. It did take its time and things like that, but I think it took more time with character stuff rather than stuff with the snake, you know. So it was okay. I also revisited, because Scream Factory put out a Blu-ray of it, Manhunter. Manhunter is one of my favorite movies. It may be even in my top 10. It's just one of those perfect movies that, and it's not like perfect. It's obviously like very dated, and look and sound and everything like that. But wow, is it such a well executed and good looking movie? There's almost no false note in it, and I prefer the theatrical cut over the director's cut. I think the director's cut has unnecessary extra stuff in it. Theatrical cut feels like a well-oiled machine, where it's got a very specific pace and it's ironed out, and you get just enough information for the plot to go on and the characters to do their thing. I think the director's cut throws that out the window just a tiny bit, and it's not as good. It's interesting to see all the extra scenes, but there's a reason that they were cut out, back when that movie was released. But yeah, Manhunter, terrific movie, and I like it way more than the new adaptations of it. Brett Ratner did a version of the Red Dragon novel. It was okay, but I didn't buy Ed Norton as Will Graham or Ralph Fiennes as Francis Dollarhide for a second. They were too Hollywood looking to me. To me, Tom Noonan will always be Francis Dollarhide to me. He is so creepy and so off-putting and strange in that movie that he just works perfectly. And the new Hannibal TV show they did, it started out pretty good and was pretty interesting and pretty gruesome and stuff, and it was amazing that something like that would be on TV. But at the same time, it got swallowed up in its own aesthetic, where it was just it became like an art show, and I just didn't want that. And I know a lot of people might crucify me for this. I really don't care, but I think the art overrode the story in the TV show version. Beautiful stuff, beautiful looking imagery, really well crafted, and very good performances, but it just didn't click, because I wasn't with and I'm specifically talking about season 3, by the way. It wasn't so bad in the first couple of seasons, but by season 3 they just went full on, we're just going to shoot everything in slow motion and double expose everything, and have paintings, and I just was like, I just want to watch the story continue. I don't care about anything else. So yeah, Manhunter is the purest and the least Hollywood-ish of all of the versions of Red Dragon, and it always will be. I revisited Krampus. I've talked about Krampus before. I think I saw it over Christmas, and it was a terrific movie. Deathgasm, which I hadn't seen. That was one of these movies that just sort of came out of nowhere. It was playing festival circuits, and I watched it, and I liked it a lot. I didn't love it. It was very Shaun of the Dead to me, and not Shaun of the Dead as in it's a horror comedy, but but more as in it's almost beat for beat the same story, just in a different place with different people and with demons instead of zombies. Uh, it feels like that to me. Even the outcome is about the same. So you look at Shaun of the Dead and Deathgasm side by side, you'll see that they're pretty much the same movie. I may do that actually. That may be a video project I work on. Yeah, and then there's Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, which I, some people thought that was a great title. I didn't. I thought that was very desperation ish. Like, we've done everything we can do with zombies. How about this? And that's just it. You've done everything you can do with zombies. Let's stop for a while. Especially in the movie department, because The Walking Dead is still popular and people are watching that. So let them do that and not worry so much about movies, because zombie movies are over for a while. Every low budget filmmaker now that wants to make a name for themselves is making a zombie movie of some kind, and I was even almost going to make one at one point, and I just decided that no, there's just too much of a glut of it. Even though I love the script and everything, I was like, there's too much. There's way too much. The movie itself is a cross between Superbad and, any zombie movie that you can think of, pretty much. More like Zombieland, actually, where it's like, slightly comedic and all of that stuff. Well, more than slightly, just comedic. I didn't like it all that much. I didn't really care for the characters either. They felt cookie cuttered kind of characters. Just, generic, here's the lead, and he's the good guy, and he tries to do good things, and here's the funny character who says outrageous things, and here's the sympathetic character, and here's the kick-ass chick. I don't know. It just felt like a commercial product. It probably wasn't. I know it was distributed by Paramount, but it was probably an acquisition of some kind, not necessarily something that they produced themselves. It failed at the box office, and I think rightly so. But I'm sure more people are going to like that movie than I will, and that's fine. And also, last but not least, I just got through, it took me a couple of days, but I just got through the Arrow Video Bloodbath Blu-ray release. Oh my god. You talk about convoluted. That movie, or movies, it's just unbelievable how many times Roger Corman wanted to try to make a good movie out of some material that he had. Basically, how it started is he hired a film crew to shoot a movie in Yugoslavia, and it ended up being this spy thriller called Operation Titian, which the story is that this man comes to steal a Titian painting with the help of a fellow painter, local painter. And then when people start getting bumped off and you're not quite sure who it is it him? Is it him? The police get involved and people are in danger and things like that. And it's not really a horror movie as so much as it is a slight thriller. Apparently Roger Corman didn't like that, so he decided to have someone recut the movie. And it may have even, I can't remember because because it's so convoluted, but it may have played on television. It was called Portrait in Terror, and it was a slimmed down version of the same movie, and I think it had like one extended scene that didn't really make a whole lot of sense in the context of the movie, but it had a better score. And that was my problem with Operation Titian. It was the score. It was one of those jazzy 60s scores that just are horribly outdated, and they're more annoying than they are anything now. And they don't really add any tension to the story. But the score in the Portrait in Terror version was, I thought, very effective. and added some tension to some of the scenes, because a lot of those scenes in the first version of the movie, it just didn't have any. And then, a couple of years later, he hired Jack Hill. Jack Hill directed The Big Bird Cage, Switchblade Sisters, a lot of different Roger Corman productions. He hired him to rework the movie. And what Jack Hill did was he shot almost an entirely new movie. It's like 75% a new movie, and like the rest of it is footage from Operation Titian and Portrait and Terror. And it was called Bloodbath. And it was supposed to be, the original story idea was that it was a painter who was slowly losing his mind and believed that he was his ancestor, and his ancestors supposedly killed people or something like that. So he's killing people and painting them in their death poses and things like that. And Roger Corman didn't like that version of Bloodbath, so it didn't get released. Instead, he handed it over to his assistant at the time, named Stephanie Rothman, who was a first-time director, and she recut the movie and shot some new sequences where they didn't have the original actor anymore, so they had to hire this guy to make him look like a vampire. And instead of him believing that he was, the painter believing that he was like his dead relative, he believed that he was a vampire, or he literally was metamorphosizing on screen into a vampire. They do a little transition from him into the guy dressed as the vampire, so they shot some more footage for that. And that version got released, and that was probably the most well-known version of the movie. And then later, it got re-released again with a couple of new sequences added to pad out the running time, I think, to show on television, if I remember correctly. And they even inserted some footage from Operation Titian and overdubbed it so that it would make sense story-wise. And it's kind of, I kind of admire it for that, how they were taking old stuff and reusing it in a different context. And it doesn't quite work, but it works, at least structure-wise, you know. But it's obvious that while you're watching it that these people are not saying what they're saying, so it sort of defeats the purpose, but it sort of works. Anyway, it was just people trying to be creative. But that version was called Track of the Vampire, and it's one that's been on countless like dollar DVDs and things like that. And this box set that Arrow Video put out was the first time that all four of these movies had come together in the same package. My only lament is that we don't get to see Jack Hill's original version of Bloodbath. And we only see his and Stephanie Rothman's version. That's a shame. But the most entertaining thing about that box set is Tim Lucas's visual essay. If you don't know who Tim Lucas is, you go read some Video Watchdog. He's really great. And he does a lot of extras, especially for Mario Bava's Blu-ray and DVD releases, because he was a Mario Bava biographer, and he's an obsessive film and book geek. He's a really cool guy, and writes some really good articles and stuff. So, but he did this video essay, this very long video essay about the convoluted history of this movie, and it is way more entertaining and interesting than anything in these movies. And I highly recommend that set. It's hard to recommend a set of movies that aren't quite that good. They have some interesting things about them, but overall they're not very good. So it's hard to do that, but at the same time, it's kind of fascinating seeing the evolution of what started as a spy thriller turning eventually into a vampire movie. It's fascinating how you get from A to D, or rather E if you count Jack Hill's unreleased version of Bloodbath. So that was really great. Although I was kind of worn out with it by the time I was done with it. And that's all of the recent movies and stuff that I've seen. I've got some more coming up that I'll do another podcast here soon, and I'll talk about new Blu-ray releases and movies and stuff that I've seen. As far as theatrical releases, we saw the Rifftrax live Time Chasers thing, which is really fun. There's no need to review that. I mean, you know what that is, and it was a lot of fun. And I look forward to the MST3K reunion show that they're doing next month. That should be fun. I also saw Captain America: Civil War and Keanu. Saw a double feature of them. I know that sounds strange, but it was a double feature of those movies. And I'll start with Keanu just to make it simple. Keanu is one of the best comedies of the year because I'm not a Key and Peele fan, but these guys are really funny in this movie, and this movie is a lot of fun. And truth be told, it's actually a better action movie by the fact that they use actual blood squibs in the movie and not CGI blood. I was taken aback by that. I didn't expect that in a movie like this. Just a cheap comedy. You expect in a cheap comedy they're just going to use as little as possible to get by with it. But no, this is full on action movie stuff. And being that this is sort of John Wick-ish, this movie, it's a better movie than John Wick just because of that. It was a more entertaining movie than John Wick, in my opinion. I know that's probably heresy of some. I'm expecting somebody to kick in the door and burn me at the stake or something at this point, but no, I just really felt that way. It was very entertaining. As for Captain America: Civil War, I like Captain America: Civil War a whole lot, but mainly for Spider-Man. The Spider-Man stuff in that movie is phenomenal. It's the best Spider-Man that they've ever done. At the same time, he feels out of place and a little tacked on in that movie because he is. And then he doesn't serve any purpose to the plot overall. And he drops out of the story without any real consequences or anything. But still, he's still the best Spider-Man in the movie. But none of that matters because he's the best thing in the movie. But the Civil War movie as a whole has definite pacing and tonal issues. And it doesn't ruin the movie at all. That's the thing. It just feels like two movies, they've been re-edited into a single movie. You've got your dramatic action scenes with Bucky and Captain America and Iron Man. But at the same time, you've got like this fun action comic book stuff, like the airport scene. All of that stuff is really great. And then you have your serious stuff. It doesn't meld quite that well. It feels earned because they've been setting it up from the beginning of the movie, which I won't spoil. But it still didn't meld all that well to me. There were some things that I noticed about the movie that I haven't really seen anybody bring up, so I think I'll bring them up now. While I was watching the movie, at some point, and by the way, I'll just go ahead and preface this. This is a little spoilerish. So if you don't want to be spoiled by this and you haven't seen it, you may want to tune out. When Captain America's side is thrown in prison, there's really no explanation as why they're in prison. They're just suddenly in prison all of a sudden. It's not like there were cops around or people coming to get them or something like that. And besides, they're superheroes. We didn't get that scene where they surrendered to the cops or anything like that, or they were on the run from the cops. As anti thing as they were, it didn't make sense that they were just suddenly in prison without much of an explanation. It's like in one scene they're not in jail, and the next scene they are in jail with no not context, but no explanation. I really ran into that. It took me out of the movie for a second. And by the way, how and why did Captain America know that Tony Stark's parents were killed, but he didn't know who killed them? that doesn't really make any sense. Why did he not know about Tony Stark's parents? And I don't, who the killer was. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But overall, the movie was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Except that, those couple of things that I ran into. None of those things killed the movie for me, by the way. I'm not sitting here saying it's a terrible movie. I'm saying it's a good movie, but it has these problems. And, some movies just have problems, but I still like them anyway. So that's just the nature of movie making and watching movies and stuff. And also yesterday, I finally caught the screening of The Nice Guys. And The Nice Guys is one of my favorite movies of the year, hands down. And I was blowing up Facebook and Twitter about this, but they really need to let Shane Black write and direct more movies. But I just found out today that Shane Black wants to do a new Doc Savage movie, which, if you're not familiar with Doc Savage, he was a character from a series of pulp novels that they did in the early 1900s. I can't remember what the time frame. I can't remember if it's 30s or 40s or something like that. I've never read them, but I did see the original George Pal movie, and I really liked it, even though most people consider it a piece of shit. I think it's kind of like Masters of the Universe. It's not what everybody wanted or expected, but it sort of got the job done. At least there is a Masters of the Universe movie, and at least there is a Doc Savage movie, and now there's going to be another one. And it's going to star The Rock. The Rock just wants to be in everything, doesn't he? And they just want to cast The Rock in everything. I guess that can work, and it's nothing racist about this or anything, but when I think of Doc Savage, I think of a tanned, muscular white man with blonde hair. And maybe that's just out of fashion now, and they don't want to go in that direction because, I don't know. It seems strange that they're not going to stick to it, especially with how well Marvel's been doing with adhering to things that were in the comics and stuff. It's just funny that Shane Black isn't going to go that direction. But at the same time, I can't question Shane Black because Shane Black is making quality movies. He made Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, terrific movie. Iron Man 3, terrific movie. And now The Nice Guys. The Nice Guys is one of the funniest movies I've seen all year. It's one of the most entertaining movies I've seen all year. And it sucks that the movie didn't do that well. I think it made its money back, but I don't think it did particularly well. Even though the advertising for it was everywhere. I saw lots every time I turned on the TV, when I do watch TV, because I don't watch much, but if I was ever watching TV, I always saw a TV ad for it. But for some reason, nobody cared. Nobody went to see it. And I'm like, this just looks like a fun movie that everybody should go see. But no, it didn't do it for everybody. Did it for me, though. I really enjoyed it, and so did my girlfriend. She loved it. It's a terrific movie, and it's still in theaters, so if you can go see it before it leaves the theaters. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. And that's all I got this week. I don't really have much more than that. I think I've gone over everything. Next time we reconvene, I will talk about, again, some more Blu-ray releases. Maybe I'll see a movie or two by then at the theaters. And if I don't, we'll just sit here and bullshit, man. And that's all I got for this week. So this has been Tim Salmons, or by the way, you can say my name either way you want, because I do it. You can say Salmons, you can say Salmons. I don't really care. As long as you remember my name, that's all, and know how to spell it. Salmons. That's all I care about. Okay, thank you, and I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.